Typically, the best cure for any conflict is clear, consistent, and honest communication. Typically, the hardest thing to do in the midst of any conflict is have clear, consistent, and honest communication. Communication is so important to any relationship that we have, whether that's a husband and wife, or a child and a parent, coworkers, or just family members in general. Communication is so vital in order to have any sort of relationship, much less when we're in the midst of a conflict in that relationship. So, thankfully, the Bible, it gives us some guidelines, some rules when we are thinking about communication and thinking about how to deal with a conflict in the midst of a relationship. So in Ephesians chapter 4, we can find 4 rules or guidelines to how to deal with a conflict and how to have good communication in the midst of that. And let me be clear, from the very get-go, this is not original with me. The 4 rules of communication, I've heard this back when I was in Bible college. Multiple professors had told me and pointed this out to me. And when I've been here at Payless, Pastor Bob, he's pointed this out to me and people in the congregation, the 4 rules of communication. And I've used this when I've counseled people. I've used this when I've done premarital counseling, when I've talked with people, and even just in my own life. Following these 4 rules, these 4 guidelines, really does help when we think about communication, and especially communication in the midst of conflict. So the first one, found in Ephesians chapter 4, can be found in verse 25. It says, "Therefore, having put away falsehood, let each of you speak the truth with his neighbor, for we are members one of another." The first rule, the first guideline, be honest. And what I've come up with is that there's 3 ways that we typically can and will break this rule of being honest. The first one is an outright lie. A lie is a lie is a lie. So if you tell a big, bad, terrible lie, that's not being honest. If you just tell a little white lie, that's still not being honest. So the first way we can break this rule is to tell a lie. The second way we can break this rule is what I call deception, really. So teenagers typically are really good at this. We're not necessarily telling a lie, but we mislead on purpose. So we say, "Oh, I went out with my friend." Well, you went out with your friend, but you also went and did 12 other things while you were out. But if I just tell them I was out with my friend, that's all they're thinking about. So it's intentionally misleading, intentionally not telling the truth, intentionally avoiding the issue. And that's the last way that we can break this rule, is just avoiding the issue altogether. You're not being honest with yourself. You're not being honest with the person who you're trying to communicate with. If you just are always avoiding the issue, always avoiding conflict, that's not being honest. The next rule, the next guideline is keep current. This is found in verse 26. "Be angry and do not sin. Do not let the sun go down on your anger." Make it a priority to deal with the conflict, to deal with the issue as soon as possible. Drop other things that are going on. Make sure that you can, in the appropriate and feasible amount of time, deal with that issue. Maybe there's an issue, maybe there's a conflict, and both of you just need to take a moment to calm down. That's great, that's good. Sometimes we need to just collect ourselves, get a hold of our emotions and calm down. But make it a priority that you say, we will take 10 minutes, we'll take 5 minutes, we'll take an hour, but we are coming back and we're dealing with this. We're not going to let it go once we're calmed down. We're going to make sure that we're keeping current. Because I don't want to be talking about a conflict that happened a week or a month or a year ago. No, we got to deal with the issue right then and there. The next rule, the next guideline is found in verse 29. It's attack the problem, not the person. Verse 29 says, "Let no corrupt talk come out of your mouths, but only such as is good for building up as fits the occasion, that it may give grace to those who hear." We need to attack the issue, attack the problem, attack the conflict, and not the person. So easy to get off topic. It's so easy to bring up other issues and past conflicts if we're attacking that person. And a way that we often will attack the person without even trying or meaning is to use absolutes. So typically, it's not a good idea. I'm not going to use an absolute there, but typically it's not a good idea to use absolutes, because if you say you never or I always, what's the kind of response you're going to get back? You're going to get a defensive posture right back at you. If you say you never, then the person, they're not talking about what you just said. They're not thinking about the conflict at hand. Now they're thinking about, well, no, you're wrong. I did do that once. Or there was 3 times that I did that. Absolutes are typically unfair, uncalled for, and really just get you off topic. So stay current and make sure that you're attacking the problem, not the person. It's not good to go after the person's character or heart or anything like that. Stay on topic, attack the problem, not the person. And then the last thing is act biblically, don't react. We can find this in verse 31 and 32. It says, "Let all bitterness and wrath and anger and clamor and slander be put away from you, along with all malice. Be kind to one another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another as God in Christ forgave you." We need to act in a way that honors God and honors the other person. Avoid reacting to situations. Avoid reacting to things that are said. Instead, think through the whole situation. Then act in a way that is consistent with who God has called us to be. It's always better if we can be proactive rather than reactive. Because when we can be proactive, we can really honestly act in a way that honors God and honors that other person. We can act biblically. When we react to things, it's a lot harder to act biblically. It's a lot harder to think through all the things that God would want us to be and do. Instead, make sure that you're consistent in how you're reacting, and make sure that you're proactive in acting and giving that person honor and respect as you're communicating. And communication in these times is so important. While we're having more time with a fewer amount of people in quarantine, it's so important that we are spending time communicating in a way that honors God, in a way that honors the other person, in a way that is not putting ourselves first or elevating ourselves. We're being clear, we're being consistent, we're being honest with each other. We're gonna be make sure that we're current with the issues, and we really need to make sure that we're putting that person first and not attacking them. Instead, we're attacking that conflict. We're attacking that problem. Hopefully, these 4 things found in Ephesians chapter 4 have been helpful for you. And this is not the end of the course when it comes to communication. There's so much more that we can say and talk about when it comes to how to have good and honest and consistent communication. But in the midst of that, hopefully these 4 guidelines have been helpful. There's something that you can look back through, and you can think about how you really can honor God as you communicate, even in the midst of conflict.